Let's start this time by defining the shape of the objects that we want to create. So for the size classes, we need to cover the large, medium, and small variants. So let's start with large, set an empty string, medium, and small. And the TypeScript error is gone. And for the shape classes, we're going to cover square, rounded, and pill. So you can see that without having to refer to the button props type, I can use the autocomplete suggestions and easily create the object shape that is required to make sure we cover every possible variant. So let's start with size classes. So I will scroll down to the size variants down here. And so what's affecting the size here is likely the font size and the internal padding inside the button. So for the first one, PX7 and PY 2.5 and text LG as well. And I think everything else is out of the size concern. Yep, so I'll copy these and paste them in the large variant. Going to the second one, the medium one, we have PX5 and PY2. We do not have a font size here because I guess the font size is the base, the normal default font size. So I'll paste the padding classes here, but I think it's worth here explicitly specifying the font size with text base, not only to communicate the intent, but also possibly reset the font size if a parent element sets the font size to something else. So here I will specify text base. And for the third one, the small variant, we have PX3, PY1, and text small. All right, let's try to blend these size classes alongside the base classes and impact classes. So size classes, and we'll reach for the dynamic size prop value. Hit save. And you can see our buttons are taking shape rapidly now. We can see the different sizes here working. And essentially what's missing is the shape classes, the rounded corners, the pill button. Everything else seems to be falling in place really nicely. Good stuff. So let's go and implement the shape classes now. I'll continue going down for the shape variant. So here we're most likely looking for just rounded corner classes, and the square, well, has no class. You can see here for the rounded, it has rounded MD. Once again, we could leave an empty string for the square variant, but let's explicitly set rounded none, which sets the border radius to 0 pixel. We've seen that the rounded was using the rounded MD class, so I'll paste that one here. And the pill variant uses the rounded full class. So one more time, let's go in the class name attributes, and we're going to compose one more variant, the shape classes, reaching for the dynamic shape prop. And our buttons now look really, really, really nice. So let's do a quick recap. We've taken a series of hard-coded buttons with a lot of repeated class names for each button, and then essentially organized our classes within different style concerns. And then we compose these parts together dynamically inside the class name attribute, which allows us to organize dynamic styles in a really elegant and organized way. The base classes is a string that stores every utility class applied to all of our buttons. Then we have our impact classes for the bold, light, and none variant. And you know what? I just realized that for the bold variant, we have a shadow here, but we forgot to implement the disabled reset of that shadow. If we look at the bold hard-coded button, when the button is disabled, we undo that shadow. So I'm going to copy this and add that one to the bold variant. All right, so these are our impact classes, setting the background color, text color, and as you've seen, the shadow. I'll remove this comment here. So then we have the size classes, setting padding classes and font size classes for the different variants. And the shape classes do the same for the rounded corners. Once we have all these styles lookup objects put together, we compose them together in the class name attribute. We have the base classes, and then for each prop, we reach for the dynamic prop value passed for the impact, the size, and the shape. And by doing so, each button gets the correct mix of Tailwind classes applied without having any complicated logic inside the class name attributes. Instead, we have all our styles organized in one place, this Tailwind classes lookup directory. All of the classes used for all of our buttons are organized in one place, and we don't use any interpolation to create dynamic classes, so everything is going to work really well with the just-in-time engine. Let's scroll down here and play with it a little bit. So I'm going to change the props passed to the first button here. So it's this button right here. You can see it doesn't have any props because it's using all the default values, which is bold, medium, and rounded. I'll just change the text here to Pro Tailwind. And let's have some fun with it. So I can change the impact, and you can see the auto suggestion. So let's change it to light. Maybe change the size to small and the shape to peel. And let's make the impact back to bold by removing the prop. And you can see that everything is working really well. And if I add the disabled attribute, there is no pointer events, no shadow, and everything's working really well. And all our 9 buttons here are displayed here within these 15 or so lines of code. And you can see that this is incredibly more pleasant to work with and maintain than what the hard-coded buttons look like when we're repeating all the Tailwind classes. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of how you can organize your styles and compose multiple style concerns together. Up to this point, there wasn't much complexity in our buttons. We always had objects with strings inside of them, but this approach of having style lookup objects can also handle more complex scenarios, as we'll see in the next challenge.